Good morning, friends. EJ here with the Back Porch Antiques, and today we've got something a little special to share with you. I've got my friend, also a vendor at our store, Lynn Hartman, and we're here with his 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner Superbird. A very rare car, and it's an honor to have it in the county and to get to see it, but especially even to put a video together about it. You know, at the Back Porch Antiques, we love talking about history, especially history you can touch or history you can hold. And those stories need to be told and held on to. So that's why we're highlighting things like this, and especially this car today. But again, it's a really rare car, and I'd like to ask Mr. Hartman to tell you a little bit about the car and a little bit about how he acquired it and brought it home to Greene County. So, Mr. Hartman, it's my understanding that you ran across this car almost by accident as a teacher at the West Greene, right?
Or is it Mossheim?
Mossheim School.
I was Alan Broyles, who's a local politician and person that's known well in Greene County.
Greene County mayor.
Greene County mayor. At the time, he was the football coach at Mossheim. And Alan knew I was interested in the car. It had belonged to the parent of one of the students that was at Mossheim. And it just so happened that the young man, after he had graduated from Mossheim and gone on to West Greene, came back and visited his old football coach. Well, Alan mentioned the car to him that day, and the boy told him if somebody went down there right then, the dad might be willing to sell it. Well, Alan told me that at school that day, and I went down right after school and asked the dad about buying the car, and he was willing to sell it. So that's how I acquired the car, and it was because of Alan's asking the young man the question there. So
Didn't let any grass grow on your feet and getting down there, though,
no, just as soon as school was out that afternoon, I went down there.
Now, what year was that? You said it was 84, 85? Somewhere in there?
Somewhere in the late 80s.
Okay. So you've had the car for a pretty good while.
I've had the car for a good while.
So a little bit about the car. Again, 70 was the only year that these cars were built. Two different wing cars that are well known, one being the Dodge, I guess they called it the Daytona, which
Correct.
was a 69 year model, and then the Plymouth Superbird in 70.
Correct.
If I understand it right, there's about 1,300 of those cars produced, is that correct?
Somewhere, the actual number is not known for sure. Chrysler apparently lost that data. Of the Daytonas, there's roughly 500 of them, maybe a little bit less. The Plymouths, they changed the rule, and they had to build one Plymouth in 70 for every 2 dealerships in the country, and that amounts to about 1,935. So there probably were about 1,935 Superbirds built. There were approximately 500 Charger 500s and about 500 Daytonas that were built.
Okay, yeah.
And at the same time, Ford was building the Ford Talladega to compete with them. They were built for NASCAR. They were built to race, to go fast. The aerodynamics.
That's what it was all about in this car, was the aerodynamics and getting that car to stick to the track with the high horsepower big block motors that NASCAR was allowing them to use. This specific car is a 440. My understanding, some of these cars, for all you car guys, there were, my understanding, about 135 that had the 426 Hemi in them, which I would say is what the NASCAR guys would have raced. Petty was the famous go-to for these Plymouth wing cars. In 69, he went to Ford. And then 70, Chrysler had kind of lured him back with the wing car and the Superbird. And in 71, NASCAR was scared to death that these cars were going to go too fast and start killing a bunch of people. So they put enough regulations on these cars that they couldn't be competitive. I think one of the regulations were, if you were still going to run a wing car in 1971, either had to run, I think, a 5-liter engine or add an additional 500 pounds to the car, is what I had read somewhere. But that just made them not very feasible for the racing circuit. But my understanding, Mr. Hartman, this car here is a 440 4-barrel car.
Correct, yes.
And automatic. Very beautiful car. We want to highlight that. We'll also show you some some of the documentation that came with this car. Again, here in Greene County, one of probably maybe 1,000 remaining worldwide. So it's an honor to be able to speak with Mr. Hartman about his car and to see the car and get close enough to even smell it.
Back in the day, when I was a teacher, I used to take this to school every year and do a science lesson with it. A lot of the kids that I had, these were fifth graders and sixth graders. A lot of the kids don't necessarily remember the science lesson we did that day, but they do remember the car. And very frequently, I still have former students come up and talk about remembering the car being at school that day.
That's pretty neat.
You could do a great science lesson with it about why an airplane flies, Bernoulli's principle, why an engine is a great big air pump. How many of the children remember the science lesson, I'm not sure, but they do remember the other part.
Well, that's awesome, taking what you've got and using it to make a lasting impact. And again, that's why we do what we do at the Back Porch Antiques and doing these videos, because we feel like that history is worth telling, the story, and sharing that for perpetuity. So anyway, we'll walk around the car and get some pictures of it and some video about how it looks and those sorts of things and some of the highlights of this particular beautiful Mopar machine.